The Women's Champions League is changing. The new format brings more teams, more games, and a system designed to create more competition throughout the tournament. But is it actually better? Let's break down the changes and why it might just be the best thing for the growth of the women's game. So how is the format changing? We're moving from 16 teams to 18 teams, and obviously adding 2 teams to the competition will change the entire format, as we're moving from 4 groups of 4 to 1 league of 18, mirroring what's happened in the men's game. Now, rather than playing 3 different teams home and away, they'll now play 6 different teams throughout the league phase, with 3 being at home and 3 away. These fixtures will be determined based on the following pots: Pot A, Pot B and Pot C, and these will be determined based on UEFA coefficient ranking. This attributes points based on performance in UEFA competitions over the last 5 years. Teams will be drawn 2 teams from each pot, with 1 fixture being at home and 1 being away. Then from the League of 18, the top 4 will automatically qualify for the quarter-final stage. The teams then placed from 5th to 12th will automatically qualify for a new stage of the competition, the knockout playoff round. This will see these 8 teams pitted against each other, and the 4 winners will go on to play the 4 teams that we've just seen qualify for the quarterfinals. From here, the quarterfinals will continue as normal, the quarterfinal stage, semi-final stage, and then the final. So let's start by discussing, why are UEFA implementing this new format? Why do you think UEFA are doing it, Harry?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, but I think number one in UEFA's mind will be the economic impact for their company.
It's a great way to save money.
Yeah. But yeah, UEFA, they see it's great for them. It's going to bring more fixtures, more money, more games being played, means they're going to get more fans through the door. They can charge more from TV rights. We've already seen that with the new deal being signed with Disney Plus. That has already smashed the deals that they've signed previously with the likes of DAZN. So that's already a big tick. And they've just got more to sell. It's more advertisements. So for UEFA, they won't say it, because why would they ever admit it? But the number one reason they're doing this is it is going to impact UEFA, but to be fair, it's also going to impact the women's game. That does have to be said, that yes, UEFA get more money, but so do the clubs. More games, more people through the gates, more attendances, especially if you get a big game, you're going to get a lot of people turning up to that. So it presents more opportunities for clubs to raise a bit more money, and it is going to aid those clubs that do make it into the Champions League to get more than they have in previous seasons. Your home games increase as well. Yes, you've got a bit more travel, but that's all part of the process. You're on TV more, and you're going to get to play more games. So overall, it's good for everyone in terms of the increase in money. But from UEFA's point of view, they are very much looking forward to this new campaign kicking off.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely the motivator. It's why they changed it in the men's game. It's why it's now coming across to the women's game. It's more money for everyone involved. UEFA make more money, TV rights pay more, sponsors get more for how much they pay. It's a win-win for everyone economically. The official reason UEFA have stated, though, is that UEFA wants to build on the success of the competition, make the Women's Champions League even more competitive, deliver more excitement for supporters, and an even better sporting experience for the players. Do you think we'll see that on the field then? Obviously, UEFA aren't going to say they want money, and this is a little bit of corporate jargon, but do you think the new format could execute some of those principles?
Yeah, I think so, especially for that. I think the player opportunities one and the environment is actually a very interesting point, because it's not something that I necessarily thought of, but especially for those smaller sides, it's more games, it's more opportunities to play at better grounds against better oppositions. We saw some magical ties last season, even when we had the old format, where these smaller semi-professional sides were coming over to some of the big leagues, to some of the biggest clubs in the world, and for them, yes, they might get absolutely smashed, but the occasion for the fans and for the players is very, very exciting. So especially for those lower clubs, and for the players playing for them, I think it does provide a good opportunity. But yeah, it's one of those where UEFA's reasoning, there's some truth to it, absolutely, but also it is kind of just put together and put out as a generic statement. But I do think that, yeah, definitely that there's some things in there that I think we will see, and overall what they have listed are all positive, so you can't really complain at them.
Yeah, and you mentioned the smaller clubs there, and I think that it's been that indirect consequence of this new format change. The format is designed to keep the big clubs in the tournament, because it's very difficult in a league of 18 teams for the big clubs to fall in the bottom 6. All they've got to do is finish above 6 teams, rather than in a group stage where if they were to be drawn in a difficult group, they could be knocked out. UEFA wants to keep the big clubs in for obvious reasons. The big clubs drive more revenue, they drive more eyes on the game, the matchups between them are more interesting, and so you can understand why they want to keep them in the competition, but that it's also had an impact because I think it's easier now for smaller sides to win games, and we'll discuss obviously how the matches are changing, but because the smaller sides have to only play before in the previous format, the smaller sides have to play big teams twice away and at home. So even if you did manage to maybe nick a result at home, that team then knows how you're going to play, and by the time you get to the away leg, you're probably going to get smashed because they're a much superior team. So it made it very difficult for upsets to happen. But now that the group stage comprises of 6 one-off ties, it can be a huge opportunity for those smaller clubs, because if they can beat the sides, if you're in pot 3 for example and you beat your other 2 pot 3 matchups and then maybe nick a result in pot 2 or 1, like in your games against the pot 2 or 1 teams, then you could be in a situation where you're able to progress into the next round, which is then obviously huge for some of the smaller sides. So we should see revenue spilt down a little bit to those smaller clubs as well. And obviously now with the Europa Cup coming in, which we've heard so little about from UEFA, it's unbelievable, but that is coming in this season. We will also see those teams being able to go into that competition, and then other teams that can't get into the Champions League being able to go and play in the Europa Cup. Let's discuss your thoughts on the changes, Harry. Do you like them?
I think so. As you say, we've kind of had not a trial run, but we've kind of got an experience of what it's like in the men's game. Although in the women's game it will be a bit of more shorter. There's less teams in the competition. I think that there's been positives and negatives. I do like the feeling, as you say, for those little sides where it almost becomes 6 cup finals. They've got 6 lots of 90 minutes to go out and get what they can. And, they're not going to face that team again in the tournament. And if they can get something that's absolutely brilliant, I do think that very much helps. I think it will make it, although it favours the big sides, I think it does make it interesting, because there's still a chance they can get it wrong, because if you don't get your results against the pot 3 and the pot 4 side, suddenly if you are a big side in pot 1 or pot 2, you've then got to go and get results against sides that are of equal or better quality than you. So I think it will be interesting. Overall, I like it. I think it's a good change. It's going to help the growth of the game. As I say, it's going to provide great opportunities for players to impress as well. So it's a bigger stage. The amount, we've seen numerous players. We've seen it a lot with the international tournaments, but I definitely think it's something we can see with the European stage, where players at those smaller clubs get an opportunity to prove themselves against some of the best teams in the world. And if players can do that, then suddenly they could end up landing themselves in a big move. So I think overall, it's going to bring exciting games. It's going to bring opportunities for smaller clubs and smaller players, and it's going to give a little bit of a safety net to the big sides, while also giving them a challenge. And of course, from the fans' point of view, it gives us an opportunity to watch more games. The best teams taking each other on. There's so many positives of it. I as much as I do like a group stage and that format, I think that I don't necessarily mind this league table. I think that the positives there, it's a little bit more exciting, and I think it's all round for everyone in the tournament. It's all round a better solution. So I do think that for me it's an upgrade. But I think I can see why people would think differently, because I initially, when it first came into the men's game, I did prefer the group stage format, and I thought it was a bit more interesting. But now I've seen it play out for a couple of years, I look at it now and I think, especially with the overall quality across Europe in the women's game, I think that it's going to be very, very exciting. So for me, I personally, I really like it.
Yeah, we also speak about pot 3, the lowest pot, as though there's loads of weak teams in there, but we're going to see one of Manchester United or Bram, which will be very difficult. There's teams like Sporting in there. Obviously, a lot depends on the ties at the moment, but we could see some really interesting teams in pot 3 based on who qualifies out of the qualifiers. But pot 2 is also incredibly strong, because you've got teams dropping into that pot because of the changes now to the pot allocation. Before, with 4 pots, the top 2 pots are really strong, and 3 still had some good teams. But now you end up with pot 1 obviously incredibly strong, and then pot 2 has a really a bit of a range of teams in there based on European competition experience. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all pans out. The big thing that UEFA have said is it's going to create more competition. Obviously, with now the change to seeing how the group stage goes, or the league phase, I should say, where teams, instead of playing the same 3 teams home and away, they'll now play 6 different ties, 3 home, 3 away, and 1 away, 1 home will be from pot 1, 1 away, 1 home from pot 2, 1 away, 1 at home from pot 3. So it should create a bit more competition. Obviously, UEFA's stance on it is the format change means that without increasing the number of matches in the league phase, top teams will go head-to-head more often and earlier, and all the teams will have more competitive matches and a wide variety of opponents. Do you think this will be the case, seeing those top teams match up in the league phase?
Yeah, I think so, and they've done very, very well. I think that it's going to be good to see those sides. But again, initially I was one of those where you like to see the big sides meet in the knockouts, and you want to see them going head to head. When it's all on the line in a semi-final or a quarter-final. But unlike when it happens in a group stage, that both sides can go together, but also both still get through, and that's the thing I like about it, is that it's not one of those where in the group stage, when the best two teams in the group played each other, the winner of that usually topped the group, and that was it, and you didn't really hear much more from it. But with them facing each other in the league phase, there's a very good chance that two big sides could face off. One of them could beat the other, but the one that loses could still finish head in the league, and I like that bit, because it means that even if you do drop points to some of the best teams in the world, it doesn't define your campaign. It doesn't mean you're going to be in a spot of bother. So I do think it's going to be very interesting to see them take each other on. And again, I'm intrigued to see how each of those teams will play it out, because usually sides will, especially the big sides, will rest throughout the group stage and then start going a bit harder at it once you get to the knockouts. But because they're going to be playing each other, and playing stronger opposition from minute one, it's going to be interesting to see how that's managed. But overall, the fact they've got better competition and more exciting games, to be honest, but without making the actual groups or that first stage fixtures increase is pretty impressive. So I think it's going to work. Again, the reason they can say all that is because they know how it works from the men's game. They know that it's a format that should work, and I think it does lend itself to be more entertaining than the group stage.
Yeah, my only fear with it is oversaturation of those big games, because in a men's game, you've got probably around 15 teams realistically who could win the competition. Maybe a little less, little more, depending on the season. But you've got the 5 clubs in England, you've got PSG in France, you've got a few clubs in Italy, a few clubs in Germany, Bayern, Dortmund, and then the big 3 in Spain. So somewhere around 10 to 15. In the women's game, I think there's only really, going into this season, 4, maybe 5 teams who you would say have a realistic opportunity to win the competition. And I think, as someone who's watched Chelsea Barcelona at the same stage of the competition 3 years consecutively, it is starting to get quite boring to see that same matchup. And if they are to meet in the group stage and then again in the semi-finals, I just think we do risk oversaturating some of those big matches. And considering there aren't as many big teams, I do fear that we're going to see more of the same teams playing the same games over and over again. I mean, you look at the semi-finals last year and you could very much see those same 4 teams getting to the semi-finals again this year. Hopefully, with the introduction of the knockout playoff round and things like that, it's going to be more difficult for teams to get through, and we could see some upsets, which then leads to more interesting semi-finals. But yeah, I do just fear that by obviously having those big teams match up earlier on in the competition, do we risk oversaturating it? Do we risk then having the same matches happening all the time rather than different matches? But I do like the change. I think having the teams play the same 3 teams twice, I'm bored by the second game, and I understand from UEFA's perspective why you would rather have Man City play SK and St Pölten one week and then the next week play Barcelona rather than play them twice, home and away. So I do understand the changes. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it will make the group stage a much more entertaining spectacle for the fans. My only fear is that risk of oversaturation. But it should be a very exciting competition. We're recording this on the Wednesday, so we will find out the who will be into the next round on Thursday night. That should be very interesting. We've got some big ties. United have work to do to overturn it, to make sure there's 3 English clubs in the competition. So that's going to be really interesting to see if they can do that. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. The draw is on Friday. We'll find out the fixtures then. So that should be very tasty, because it can make a huge difference now. If you've got Man United or Brann as your pot 3 team, that's a really difficult fixture compared to if you've got St Pölten or if you've got OH Leuven, who could get through if they can win their second leg. So, there are some easier ties and there are some harder ties in pot 3. That can make and break a team's competition. So yeah, should be really interesting to see those fixtures. But I'm looking forward to it. Harry, are you?
Yeah, I can't wait. As I said, I think it'll be good, and there's going to be upsets. One big team will fall a cropper of the new format, and I can't wait to see who that's going to be and which smaller side is going to benefit from it.
Yeah, and once Champions League are around, we will be doing our predictions, looking at who could be the dark horses and who we think will potentially drop off then, those fallen giants. That, though, is everything from us today. I hope you have enjoyed an explainer on the new Champions League format. We want to hear from you guys as well. Let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on the new format, whether you think there'll be more competition or whether it's just to create more money for UEFA. That, though, is everything. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.